Yeah, there seems to be a body of some sort in the bushes there. Not too sure. I haven't gone near it. Where are you ringing from?
On April the 6th, 1999, her mother, Jakic, reported her missing. A large-scale search soon began after she was reported missing, but for days nothing was found. That was until a note left on a police car's windscreen at the Norwood police station 11 days after Maya was reported missing gave them a pretty significant clue. The note said, "There is a dead girl's body in the shrubs of the grounds near the main road of the Payneham police station. This is no joke. Take a good look." The police headed to the station, which was actually an abandoned police station, just before 11 p.m. on Saturday the 17th, where they found in the bushes a lifeless and severely decomposed body of a young woman. The woman was eventually identified as Maya Jakic, and testing confirmed that she died on the night of April the 12th, 5 days before her body was found. Due to the state in which her body and clothing were found in, it was believed that Maya had been sexually assaulted before she was killed, and she died by strangulation of her own clothing. Maya was reported missing on April 6th, killed on April the 12th, and her body was found on the 17th. So a few things don't add up. Mostly, where was Maya between the 6th and the 12th? So during the investigation, police discovered 2 separate emergency services phone calls from a man that had been made late on the night of the 12th, the night Maya had died. I'll play you a snippet of both of these calls now.
Yeah, there seems to be a body of some sort in the bushes there. Not too sure. I haven't gone near it. Where are you ringing from?
Police emergency.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, there's someone hanging around the old Payneham police station. Seems to be trying to break in there, I think.
These calls were made at 2 separate times that night, but by the same person. And of course, you may remember the note that was on the policeman's windshield. Well, that also mentioned the abandoned Payneham police station. And both these calls were investigated that night, but no break-in and no body was discovered, and the calls were pretty much dismissed. And this was because police had actually gone to the wrong old police station in Payneham, where Maya's body was discovered. Where Maya's body was discovered was the old patrol station in Payneham. So these calls and the note left on the police car in Norwood were now believed to be from the same man, and that was Maya's killer. The investigation continued, but police still had no witnesses and no suspects. They looked for fingerprints on the note, but they found none, and no DNA from her killer could be found on Maya's remains, which I suspect was due to how decomposed her body was. The crime scene also didn't provide them with any answers. And to add to the frustration of this investigation, the Adelaide 500 Racing Carnival was on at the time of Maya's death, meaning the perpetrator could have been someone visiting Adelaide from anywhere in the world, someone with no connection to Maya. The only things that investigators had was a voice from a phone call and some handwriting. So they took what they had and they released the note and the voice to the public. Hundreds of calls came in, but with no results. And a $100,000 reward was even put on offer. But 2 years would eventually go by with no answers. So now it's 2001, and as I said, Maya's case remained unsolved. And by this point, police had another local missing persons case on their hands. A woman named Megumi Suzuki. Megumi was an 18-year-old international student from Japan studying at the Ainsbury College in Adelaide. Her parents were Masako and Yoichi, and her sister's name was Kenta. On Friday the 3rd of August, Megumi left her student residence just before 8 AM and headed to school. She left school at 3:08 PM that afternoon and headed to one of her favourite places to hang out. The last friend to see her said that Megumi had planned to catch the bus home after their coffee date, but Megumi never made it home that day. When her room was inspected, nothing appeared out of place. except for one thing. Census forms that were due to be filled out and sent off for census weekend, which would have been that weekend just gone, were left untouched on her bed. The student advisor emailed Megumi's parents, who were back in Japan, to inform them of what was going on. Her parents said that Megumi would never leave her residence and stay elsewhere without her teddy bear, which remained still sitting in her room on her bed right near the untouched census forms. An investigation soon began, but at this point, police still were not sure if they were dealing with a missing person or something more sinister. But a clue finally emerged from a member of the public. A maintenance worker that worked on the bus line that Megumi caught most days phoned the police with some information, or should I say a discovery of sorts. And that was Megumi's bag, found in some bushes next to the bus track, as though it had just been carelessly chucked out of a bus window. The bag contained Megumi's ID, however 2 things that Megumi usually had on her were missing from the bag, and that was her mobile phone and her CD Walkman, or Discman. Looking at Megumi's bus ticket and credit card, investigators were able to retrace her final steps. Megumi actually took a bus on the afternoon she went missing in the opposite direction to her residence, where she was caught on CCTV at a BP service station. So Megumi had told her friends on the day she went missing that she was heading home back to her student residence, but she ended up on the other side of town. So why was she there? So at the service station, Megumi purchased a mobile phone SIM card, and using this information, police could track her phone records. It turned out that she made 12 calls that night and sent one final text message to her ex-boyfriend. Coincidentally, her ex-boyfriend also happened to live very near to the service station where Megumi was caught on the CCTV. So I know what you're probably thinking, and I was thinking the same thing. However, after investigators spoke to her ex-boyfriend, who was apparently extremely cooperative, they established he had a solid alibi. He had been out with friends that night. But a week after Megumi's disappearance, things got a little strange again with the ex-boyfriend. He actually ended up contacting police himself after finding a pair of women's underwear outside of his home that he believed belonged to Megumi, and as it turned out, he was right. Forensic testing found that the underwear belonged to Megumi, which at the time led to more questions than answers. How the heck did Megumi's underwear end up there, outside of her ex-boyfriend's house, of all places that it could be? Investigators also noted when searching Megumi's bedroom, she bought her bra and underwear in matching sets and similar styles. But the bra matching the underwear found outside the ex-boyfriend's home was missing, meaning she was likely wearing it on the day she disappeared. So the investigation continued and police asked the public for their assistance. But they had little to go off, especially with no body, and by this point it was believed that Megumi had met with foul play and did not decide to leave off her own back. In the meantime, Megumi's parents, Yuichi and Misako, had flown over from Japan to be closer to the investigation. Also during this time, there was actually a sighting of Megumi by someone that had known her, giving the investigation, friends and family some temporary hope. And her parents even made a public plea for her return home, but still no one heard a word from Megumi Suzuki. Also around this time, police were still trying to solve the Maya Jakic case, and made the decision to release the voice from the 2 mystery phone calls on the internet, which I believe was a pretty new and innovative thing to do at the time. And as luck would have it, someone did recognize his voice after hearing it online. A man named Stephen Rust came forward. He believed the voice from the call was his brother, Mark Rust, a 36-year-old man who lived in Gills Plains, South Australia. Police also took the note that had been left on the police car 2 years earlier and compared the writing to a letter that Mark Rust's brother had given investigators. Using a handwriting expert, they positively identified the note's handwriting to Mark Rust's handwriting. So now we're going to backtrack for just a moment to talk about where Mark Rust was at this time. 13 days after Megumi Suzuki went missing, a woman working late in an office building on Kensington Road in Norwood was sexually assaulted after a man armed with a knife cut the phone line to her building and broke in. The woman, hoping not to antagonize the man, remained calm, at least outwardly, and was submissive throughout the ordeal. And as she would later find out, her actions saved her life. The perpetrator strangely ended up giving the woman his knife to hold as he assaulted her. And after the man left, the woman reported the incident to the police, and as luck would have it, she also managed to catch a portion of the perpetrator's number plate. And this led to the arrest of the one and only Mark Rust, who, as it turned out, had a history of sex-related crimes, and not only that, he had only just been released from jail and was on parole. Rust was placed in custody after this arrest, and not too long after this, police charged him with the murder of Maya Jakic. Following this charge, Rust began bragging to fellow inmates that the CD Walkman he had in his cell belonged to a missing woman, Megumi Suzuki. So a prison informant actually told investigators about Mark Rust's CD Walkman in his jail cell, which prompted a search of his cell where they did indeed find the Walkman. Using the serial number on the Walkman and purchase records Megumi's parents had at home, police were able to confirm that it was Megumi's CD Walkman. The prison informant had further information for investigators, however, on how Rust allegedly killed Megumi. The informant said that Megumi was killed in a vacant paddock and that evidence of the crime was also burnt in the same area. So police went back to the BP service station where Megumi was last seen, and this is when they noticed a vacant block of land across the road. On this block of land, they found evidence of a fire, and as it turned out, the fire brigade had indeed put out a small fire on that lot on the exact night that Megumi went missing. The remnants of the fire had in it little bits of clothing and arm bracelets that Megumi was known for wearing. However, there was still no sign of Megumi's remains. The prison informant was also able to give investigators information as to how they may find Megumi's body. The informant told them Rust had wrapped her body in plastic and chucked it in a big bin near the site of her death. The bin mentioned was found and searched, but nothing remained in it by this time, of course, which led to police searching the Wingfield waste disposal. On day 11, and after searching through 10,000 tons of rubbish, they finally uncovered the body of Megumi Suzuki. She was still clothed, and the bra she was wearing was a matching set for the underwear that was found outside of her boyfriend's home. So her remains were eventually cremated and returned with her parents home to Japan. So let's talk a little bit about Mark Rust. At 13 years old, he began following pretty women around, having sexual fantasies about them, and by the age of 18, he was convicted of his first sexual offence. Between that time and his first murder, he committed somewhere between 11 and 13 sexual offences. His main ammo at that time was exposing himself to women and pleasuring himself. By October of 2001, Mark Rust was charged with both Maya and Megumi's deaths. He had not known either woman personally and initially maintained his innocence before eventually admitting guilt. During a psychiatric assessment, when asked why he killed Megumi, he replied, "Because I did." And at no stage has he shown any remorse for what he did.